Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is AFIQ NAUFAL with RASHID. We are from Group 9. Will present about the manufacturing process of the bicycle helmet. Our group consists of 4 members, which is me and AHMAD SHAFAWI bin FEROZ, IKHWAN bin ROZMAN, and the last one is MUHAMAD HAIKAL bin MOHAMED NADZRI. Our slide consists of 4 parts, which is the first one is introduction, the second one is the part of the product, third basic material and manufacturing process of the parts, and the last one is the manufacturing process of the product, which is bicycle helmet. So for the introduction of the bicycle helmet, actually bicycle helmet is designed to reduce impact to a cyclist's head in the event of a fall while limiting negative effects such as peripheral vision interference. The solid rubber tires and long spoke of the huge front wheel of the high-wheel bicycle became popular in the 80s-70s, providing a fast-moving rider than its predecessor. However, because the rider was so far above the center of the gravity, if the front wheel collided with a rock or crack in the road, the entire machine spun forward on its front axle and the rider was thrown to the ground. As they realized the head injuries were the big problem, they start by use a pitch helmet. At the beginning of the 20th century, it was clear to racing and club bicyclists that head traumas caused the most serious injuries and death. Racers started to using helmet with a leather ring around the head and a wool ring above it. Then the style changed and the leather ring was replaced by the leather strips aligned lengthwise on the head. This provided a little more protection than the pitch helmet, but it is still insufficient. By the 1970s, a group called the Snell Foundation had begun comprehensive testing of a bicycle helmet and discovered that none of the helmets on the market were truly effective, so they established some basic head protection criteria. Then in 1975, Bell Auto Parts created the first true bicycle helmet. It was made out of a rigid plastic shell with foam-like padding. This marked the start of the contemporary helmet. Then in the 1980s, studies began to appear suggesting that cyclists who wore helmet were less likely to get a head injury. Since then, road safety and health practitioners in many nations have made it a priority to encourage cyclists to wear helmet. The American National Standard Institute published generally agreed helmet standard in 1984. Inefficient helmets were removed off the market and the quality of all helmets was improved. Soon after, an expanded polystyrene foam liner was developed, and by the 1990s, a thin hard shell had been added to the polystyrene foam helmet for enhanced durability. Today's helmet, as we can see, are even lighter, more streamlined, and feature several bands for added comfort, as well as adjustable straps to make them more secure and comfortable to wear.
Next, we will explain about the part of the product. So for the first part is shell. Shell is the outer part of the helmet. So the function of the shell is to spread the impact over a wide area to decrease any injury such as head injury and so on.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Muhammad HAIKAL bin NADZRI and my matrix number is AA200683, and now I am going to explain the second part of our product, which is buckle. Buckle used for attaching two loose ends in a secure but adjustable manner, with one end attached to it and the other held by a catch. So how is this buckle function? It's functioned by pinch at the side of the buckle where there are cutouts that allow to contact the prongs and press them inward to release it.
So next part is nylon strap. Actually, nylon strap is to keep the helmet on tight, so it is less likely to move off the head if impacted. When the helmet head collided with the inclined piece of asphalt road, the strap was always stretched in the direction or another depending on the impact direction. And actually, this design is usually intended to provide strength and the durability to the strap.
The next part is the helmet liner, and where the liner itself is an internal foam layer that absorbs the energy and shock of an impact. And this liner is the most important part of a bicycle helmet, where the main purpose is that it is designed to take a hit for you or the impact of a collision. And for this liner, it is usually made of expanded polystyrene foam or EPS as the main choice of making this bicycle liner.
Next, we will explain about basic materials and manufacturing of each of the part of the helmet bicycle. Firstly, I will explain about the manufacturing of making helmet shell. So first of all, we must to clamp a sheet of PC plastic, and then the plastic sheet is softened using a heat source. And the next step is we must to cool down the foam plastic. And for the fourth part is remove from the mold and release from the framework. And the fifth part, trim unwanted material, and then the shell is done. So for advantages and disadvantages for shell, for the advantages, the first advantage is shell is heat resistant, thermoplasticity, pliability, amorphous nature, and lightweight. And for the disadvantages is first, susceptible to scratching, low fatigue endurance, toxic, turns yellow after prolonged exposure to UV light, and lastly, prior to process, proper dyeing is essential.
Next, the manufacturing process of the buckle. First, start with the raw materials such as nylon, polypropylene, polystyrene, and polythene. And after that, heat is applied into the raw material until it is obtained into liquid form. And then it is forced into the screw chamber, where it is injected into a specially made mold, or known as a plastic injection molding process. After the melted plastic is poured into the mold, it must be cooled down first before being removed from the machine. And finally, the process of manufacturing buckle is complete. So next, for this part, the advantages of buckle is enabling adjustment, loosening of straps, very durable, and the last advantage is easy to open and close. However, this part of product, which is buckle, also have a disadvantage, which is it have strap grip and also can cause sweat saturated problem. Besides, this buckle also can break and can undone in instant.
Next is the process of making nylon strap. So first of all, it starts from the raw material, and then it undergoes weaving process, finishing process, and then dyeing process, and it will have specialized finish, printing and cutting process, testing and quality control, and the last one is material handling and storage. The advantage of using nylon strap is actually it is sturdy and durable, unfading, and soft touch and flexibility. But there are some disadvantages for this type of material. The first one is it can cause skin irritation or acne when the strap absorbs the sweat, which encourages the growth of bacteria. The strap produces unpleasant smell after absorb the sweat, and then it is poor resistant to sunlight. But we have alternative material such as leather or fox leather material, so that it can wick moisture away from the skin and keep it cool and dry. And then we can use polypropylene material because it does not absorb water, and the last one use polyester material.
Next, the manufacturing process for the liner is first begin with the main material itself, which is the pellet of expanded polystyrene foam or EPS. Next, this pellet of EPS will enter the expander machine, where it will increase the volume of the granules of the EPS. Next, these EPS granules will be injected into the molding machine, where the high pressure and steam will be used in order to combine the EPS granules together. And next step, the EPS granules from the previous step will fill up the mold, which is in this case the mold of the liner itself, and finally join together to form a solid liner. Once the process is done, the solid liner that has been formed from the previous step must be cooled down first before extracting the liner for the next process. Next, for the liner part, the advantages for this part of liner, which is the EPS liner, is that it is lightweight, it is the low cost of manufacturing for this liner, and the last one, this EPS liner is durable and tough. However, for this EPS liner, the disadvantages is that it is difficult to optimize the energy of absorbing in different areas of head. Next, the EPS liner itself, the expanded polystyrene foam itself, has a brittle characteristic, and the last one is the inferior effect of heat dissipation. And for the last part is the manufacturing process of the product, which is in this case is the helmet. So in this part, the manufacturing process of the helmet will be explained in detail from A to Z. Like many other products, usually the first step of manufacturing process of any product usually begins with the designing process first. So in this case, the first step is by designing the helmet first, and usually the designing process usually done in through the designing software, for example like SolidWorks. And next, by making a prototype of the design itself. So in this, for example, on the picture itself, you can see the prototype of the helmet that is put on the dummy head as a tester. After the designing helmet process, the second process is begin with the shell first. So the process of making the shell is called the vacuum heat forming process, and the machine used is called the vacuum forming machine, like you can see on the picture given. Next is the control parameters. The parameters are the forming temperature, mold tool temperature, vacuum and or air pressure, and the last one is the liquid and or air coolant temperature. Next, for this process, which is the vacuum heat forming, the advantage is that this process is quick and less time consuming process. However, for this process, the disadvantages is that this process can only produce 4 or fewer shells at one process at a time. Next, once the shell is done, the next part is making the liner. So the process of making this liner is called injection molding process. So for this process, the machine used is the EPS molding machine, like you can see on the picture given. Next is the control parameters, which are the cycle time, fill time, cooling time, injection time, injection speed, and injection pressure. Next, for this process, the advantages is that this process provide a great precision and high repeatability. Next is the low labor cost, and next the high output production or high rate of production, and the last one is that it is provide a design flexibility. However, for this process, the disadvantages is that this process require a high tooling cost and long setup lead times. And last one is that this process there is a part design restriction.
And for joining process for shell, liner, strap and buckle, the process is just use a hand joining process, usually made by hand. to join both parts. And for this process, there's no specific parameter to carry out this process. And advantage for this process is it is a low cost production, promotes more job offer. And for disadvantages, it is less accuracy compared to the automation process and slow rate of production. And lastly, for safety and conformity tests, we use a drop testing process, and we use drop tester and shock machine. For control parameter for this process, drop height, gravity, plot step number, and solution time after impact. And for advantage for this process is we can simulate the real world impact effect on the helmet. And for disadvantages for this process is only one helmet can be tested at one time. Thank you. That's all from us. Thank you.